nature, has endowed Estes Park in a wonderful manner. The grandeur of its scenery, its deep blue skies, its clear, cool, and invigorating air, its mountain streams of sparkling soft water, its sunny days and delightfully cool nights are things the summer visitor never forgets, and having enjoyed once, desires to enjoy again. Quote, Freeland Oscar Stanley, 1928.
Welcome to Crypt Walkers, the podcast where the eerie and enigmatic come to life. Hosted by a police officer, Ryder.
But there was definitely something in that house.
And his co-host, William.
Legitimacy first is more important.
Director of WTCW Paranormal.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another case episode of Crypt Walkers. My name is Ryder, and tonight I am joined by my good friend...
Matt.
Yeah, me and Matt go way back. But anyway, so right now during this recording, unfortunately, William could not be with us. You know, WTCW is kind of blowing up, and sometimes you just can't take the time to record a podcast. So for right now, I have Matt filling in. And Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm into the paranormal a little bit here and there, and all sorts of other things, and old classic cars and antiques and stuff. So, and history. So, kind of interesting stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like I might be the one that kind of caused the paranormal interest, I think, a little bit. Yeah, we like I said, we go way back. We're kind of like brothers, and I've always been the ghost kid. Anyway, yeah, so I was like, hey, Matt, I need a co-host for this episode. Congratulations, you're it.
Yep. An
That's
opportunity exactly I could not pass up at the moment.
Yeah. So, anyway, to dive right back into the actual show, though, you can, if you are interested, the case we are covering tonight does have additional content. You can check us out on Instagram at Crypt Walkers, and now we are also on Twitter. Well, X, formerly Twitter, but anyway. You can check us out there at Crypt Walkers Pod. To make finding us easier on our socials, I've included a link in the link tree in the show notes. So, with all that content creator stuff out of the way and the introductions, let's dive right in. Okay? You excited, Matt?
Yeah, I'm ready to dive into this head first.
All right. Guys, this case is going to be a great one. Tonight we are covering perhaps one of the most famous hauntings in the United States. In the heart of the Colorado Rockies, a grand white hotel looms over Estes Park. And here, a man's battle for life built an empire. Here, Stephen King met his nightmares face to face. And here, investigators still chase the echoes of things unseen. Welcome to the Stanley Hotel. Cue the dun-dun-dun.
Yes, the ominous music.
The ominous music. So, Matt, have you ever heard of the Stanley Hotel?
I have not heard about it much, but I do know a little bit about its inspiration behind a famous film, if you will.
Oh, okay. Well, we're definitely going to get into that. But I guess I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about the Stanley for the first time, as well as our listeners. So our case file begins with the history of Freeland Oscar Stanley, otherwise known as F.O. Stanley. So if you were listening at the very beginning of the episode, you would actually hear a quote by F.O. Stanley. But anyway, he was born on June 1st, 1849 in Kingston, Maine. He and his twin brother, Francis Edgar, grew up to be accomplished engineers and inventors. Both had several inventions to their credit. One invention was the photographic dry plate process, which allowed for film to be available in rolls, opening the way for more modern box-style cameras today. In a way, that's kind of a connection to paranormal history, because as far as paranormal investigators, because if you think about it, a lot of what we deal with is type of photographic evidence, right? So anyway, I just noticed that little full circle. This particular invention was sold to George Eastman, who later helped create the Eastman Kodak Company. And Matt, I'm pretty sure you know who Kodak is, right?
Oh yes, I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah, big and popular when we were kids, I think. I mean, you could still buy those little Kodak cameras, disposable ones. You can take photos and then have it developed and stuff. But
oh yeah,
Now we live in a digital age. The two brothers were most famous for something else, the Stanley Steamer. The Stanley Steamer is a steam-powered automobile, and I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that.
Yes, I'm very familiar with that wonderful subject.
Yes.
Very fascinated by the automotive industry, but keep going.
Did you know how fast they were? I did not know this until I did this research, by the way.
I'd assume around 50 miles an hour, but go ahead and lay that on me.
Okay. These were fast, all right, with a record-breaking speed recorded in 1907 at 127 miles per hour.
Okay, now we're talking.
127.
Yeah, that's breakneck speeds back in that day, man.
I know, like, I just wonder what tires they had on. Like, because I'm imagining, the tires with the big, like, almost like wagon spokes going 127 miles an hour. I mean, I can't even imagine that. Regardless to say, Stanley and his brother were kind of like the Elon Musk of his time, okay? And they naturally became extremely wealthy. Unfortunately, in 1903, F.O. Stanley was sadly informed by his doctors that he was dying from a very contagious and often fatal disease called tuberculosis. Tuberculosis usually affects the lungs with symptoms including a persistent cough, unintentional weight loss, night sweats, and fever. Other symptoms would involve chest pain, coughing up blood, and feeling weak. Eventually, the victim affected would die from drowning in their own fluids.
Oof.
Yikes.
Not a pleasant way to go.
Yeah, I would prefer any other way, to be honest with you, but he was told he only had months to live, and he was advised he should move out west to be exposed to the mountain air. This exposure was often seen as the only treatment, but not a cure. So, you familiar with the movie Tombstone?
I am.
Yeah, okay, so you can picture, essentially that's what Doc Holliday had, Val Kilmer's character. Yeah, so, I mean, you can last for a while, but it's painful. And we have tons of other cases in the future that tuberculosis constantly, frequently re-emerges. So places like Waverly Hills Sanatorium, we're going to be doing Indiana State Sanatorium. That's actually going to be our next episode. And it started out as a tuberculosis hospital. So anyway, tuberculosis, it was so deadly, So in the paranormal world, a lot of locations that had tuberculosis involved typically tend to be active. But anyway, going back to our current case. So Stanley and his wife moved to Colorado, expecting Stanley to live out his last days there. However, Colorado air must have helped because Stanley got better and lived for another 37 years.
Dang.
That's pretty good. Normally this disease would take you out within 5 years. So anyway, not long after Stanley moved to Denver, he decided to move further into the Rockies in a very beautiful area called Estes Park. The area was so beautiful that Stanley had the idea to not only build his home there, but also build the first resort-style hotel in the area. Construction began in 1907, and the multi-building complex was completed in 1912. When completed, it was massive, with 140 rooms, and was built in the Georgian Revival style. The Stanley Hotel District, located at 333 Winder View Avenue, consists of 12 buildings including the Stanley Hotel, the Manor House, Stanley Hall, and the Carriage House. So it's massive. I don't know if have you seen any pictures and stuff of the Stanley?
No, but I'm sure I could look up a few pictures.
Yeah, so for those of you listening, if you guys haven't seen anything about the Stanley at all, do look it up. It is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful hotel. It's made an impact on the tourist economy for Estes Park. It literally basically put it on the map. Over the years, it has had many, many famous guests, including every governor of Colorado, the Titanic's unsinkable Molly Brown, Theodore Roosevelt, Stephen King, Bob Dylan, and even the actor Jim Carrey. I'd like to take a moment to give credit to the site where I got most of this information so far, historicstructures.com. Check out their in-depth article on this hotel, link in the show notes. They did an amazing job with the historical, non-paranormal research of the building. So, I also think it's also worth mentioning, Stanley was absolutely devoted to his wife, Flora, who he was married to for 63 years until her death. Unfortunately, she had a series of strokes, and she ended up dying in the hotel.
Oof.
Yeah. They did not have any children, but were notoriously kind to the children of Estes Park and those who lived in the area, or also visited. Stanley and Flora would usually spend their summers in Estes Park and then their winters in Massachusetts, if I said that right. I can never say that state's name.
Massachusetts is the proper way to say it, if I'm correct, which I might not be.
Mass, okay, where Boston is. But anyway, for most of the hotel's life, it was only open during the spring and the summer and closed during the winter. Okay, so if you would recall from that movie, The Shining, the hotel is closed during the winter. That's why the family's there. But anyway, I digress.
Makes sense.
So to kind of better picture what exactly this hotel encompasses, I guess I'll go ahead and go through a general description of each building. So,
and I did I did look up a few pictures. That is some beautiful architecture. I know, now.
Right? Yeah. No, it's definitely on my bucket list for sure. As far as going to not just visit, but I mean not just for the paranormal side, right? But just I mean, look at the interiors. You see the interiors?
It's gorgeous,
it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to come here. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, dude, you'll have to come. You have to come along.
Will do. But
the best way to get out there is to drive. I mean, and when you go drive up through those mountains and stuff, it feels like you're in The Shining, and B, when you have drivers driving in tandem, I mean, you can just,
Dude, we could do that.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. No. Anyway. Dude, we could do that. That would be a fun trip. But go on.
Yeah, it'd be a fun road trip. Anyway, so this is a general rundown. We have the Manor House, okay? This is immediately to the east of the hotel, and it is a smaller version of the main structure. So at one time, the hotel was called the Big Stanley, and the Manor House was nicknamed the Little Stanley. It's a 2.5-story structure with a full basement. The building repeats most of the same architectural details of the hotel, but on a smaller scale. It's constructed in an L shape, with the manor house having a hip roof, dormer windows on the front and east side, and a veranda on the front and east. Eventually, after the hotel opened, the manor house became Stanley's second residence. So both the Stanleys would primarily take up residence in the manor house, where the hotel was actually meant for all the guests.
Okay.
Then we have the Stanley Hall. East of the manor house is Stanley Hall. This is a 1-story frame structure with a hip roof. It has 12 by 1 double-hung sash windows and a large porch topped by a gable supported by 4 single-turned pillars. That is a lot of words, but like I said, I got this all from historicalstructures.com, so be sure to check them out. Anyway, Stanley Hall was originally a casino that housed a bowling alley on its lower level and served as a place for entertainment like plays and musicals. Now, it was built for the owner's wife, Flora, and is now used as a 450-seat concert hall. And it's important to note that the term casino at the time was referred to a public building for entertainment and not a gambling
that makes sense
establishment. So I needed to point that out there.
Okay.
And if you guys look that up too, it's essentially like a big private theater with like a stage. It's got these windows that are hung along the side. It's very open, it's very bright. And yeah, like I said, it was meant to mimic the Boston Symphony Hall. It was like a miniature version of that.
Yeah.
Then we have the carriage house. So east of Stanley Hall is the carriage house. The Stanley Hotel's carriage house was initially used to store the owner's Stanley steamer vehicles and horse-drawn carriages. Over time, it served other functions, including a brief stint as a motel in the 1950s, and was recently renovated to house a restaurant and a multi-tenant venue. The property has remained mostly untouched and only maintained since Stanley walked its grounds. It has only seen 6 owners since the Stanleys, and all have meticulously taken care of the property as best they could through the times that they lived. They also embraced the paranormal because, as we'll discuss, it was too hard to ignore. So, did that kind of paint a picture? I'm hoping it painted a picture of kind of...
Yeah, it painted a pretty good picture. This is a very beautiful historic building, and it has a lot of rich history, which we're going to dive into.
Right. So now that we move on into the history. So it kind of had an explosive beginning, and I mean that very literally. To give credit, I'd like to say I got all this information from U.S. Ghost Adventures. They did a pretty good article on this particular incident. Link is also in the show notes. Check them out. Here goes. 2 years after its opening to the public, the Stanley Hotel experienced the largest disaster in its history, if not Estes Park's. On the evening of Sunday, June 25th, 1911, at 7:50 p.m., a colossal explosion alerted the villagers of Estes Park that something was wrong. When the boom was heard from over a mile away, it originated directly below room 217 and would alter the history of the Stanley Hotel forever. Gas buildup between the dining room and the second floor created tremendous pressure between the hotel's walls. Although electricity was readily available to the hotel's guests, F.O. Stanley had installed a gas generator in his nearby manor and gas lamps in each room in case of power outages. The hotel had just been piped for gas usage the winter prior, and up until that point, the system had never actually been used. So that morning, there was an indication that the electrical plant was having issues that could lead to failure. In response, staff was instructed to activate the gas system. The pipes filled with the odorless gas for the first time. They had likely not been tested, and the pressure led to a formation of a small leak above the dining room. Head chambermaid Elizabeth Lizzie Wilson, or Leitenberger as she is referred to in one newspaper article, ignited the escaping gas when she lit a candle in room 217. Reports of the explosive event claim that a bathtub, now we're talking one of those heavy bathtubs with the claw feet and everything, flew up into the air. Several doors were blown off their hinges, and at least 10 plate glass windows on the ground floor below the room shattered. The explosion destroyed 10% of the 70,000 square foot hotel and all of the West Wing. The damages were estimated to be $10,000 at the time, but it also resulted in a casualty.
Oof. That had to be a sight to see a bathtub and all sorts of other debris flying through the air.
Yeah. I'm surprised that no one died in this situation. Elizabeth Wilson, who had moved to Estes Park from Philadelphia, had been working on the hotel since it opened, and she was severely injured during the blast, but she did not die. She was spared the fate of that particular bathtub because she plummeted into the dining room below her.
That's some luck right there.
Yeah. 2 waiters were also injured along with her because one was struck in the face with a flying board, while the other suffered a painful but non-lethal dislocated hip.
Okay.
It's, I don't know if you've ever had your hip dislocated. I have seen it in person. I personally have not had my hip dislocated, but I have seen somebody in person have their hip dislocated on the job. And I'll tell you right now, that is not a fun experience. I mean, we're talking major, major, major pain.
Yeah, that does not sound fun, for sure.
And then they end up sticking it back in. Anyway.
Oof.
Some versions of this story claim that 2 other maids were with her during the explosion, and some say that they weren't. So it's kind of conflicting, but one of the stories that say that there was a maid with her, she was thrown into a wall, but still heroically grabbed a fire extinguisher and fought the inferno the best she could. So most renditions of the tale state that Elizabeth, also called Elizabeth Lambert, later fell into a coma. So there's a lot of different names from a lot of different sources. Some have her as Elizabeth Wilson. Some have her as Elizabeth Lambert. That is a lot of Elizabeths, by the way. I cannot seem to talk at this particular moment.
Okay. I can't either. It happens.
I'm going to leave this in because that's just the way podcasting is, guys. So she stayed in the coma, according to the story, she stayed in the coma anywhere from 2 days to 2 years. But when she awoke, she went right back to work. Talk about being very diligent.
What a woman.
I know, what a workhorse. Employees and tour guides at the Stanley Hotel say that Stanley paid her medical bills and made her head chambermaid upon her return. So, I mean, she got a promotion, I guess you could say. So,
rightfully so.
Yeah. 5 local newspapers reported the incident the next day. While there seems to be some confusion, like I said, over the name of the person injured, there is a common consensus that the wounded were taken to a hospital in nearby Longmont, Colorado. Whether or not Elizabeth, a woman of many last names, fell into a coma completely remains a mystery. But what is known is that she did work at the Stanley Hotel for the rest of her life, dying of old age in 1950. Almost immediately after, reports of haunting activity in room 217 began, and they haven't ceased since. Kind of cool, right?
Oh yeah, that is pretty neat.
They rebuilt it, and they rebuilt it exactly as it was, restored it, And Room 217 still exists today, and reports of the haunting activity still happen. We'll go into one of those experiences in just a second. But first, I have to ask, you know who Stephen King is, right?
That is correct. I am very familiar with him. I've read a few of his books and, of course, seen a lot of his movies.
Okay. So you're familiar with, like, you know, Stanley and Christine and what was that other one? Oh, Sometimes They Come Back, all that stuff. That's all Stephen King. You're familiar with that stuff, right? Okay.
I'm very familiar with those films and books.
Yeah, the listeners don't know, but I'm purposely asking those particular ones because I know that he knows about Stephen King. But I have to ask because he's a guest.
Sorry, my bad.
Anyway, so Stephen King, for those of you that don't know, is an American author celebrated as the master of modern horror, whose vivid imagination has shaped the genre for decades. Since his breakout novel Carrie in 1974, he's written over 60 books, many becoming classics like The Shining, It, and Misery. His work often blends supernatural terror with deeply human fears set in richly detailed small towns. King's inspiration for The Shining famously came from a stay at the Stanley Hotel. According to the Denver Gazette, in an article written by Stephanie Earls, in the fall of 1974, Stephen King and his wife stopped for the night at the Stanley. Once among the grand dames of the West, the Stanley at that particular time had fallen on hard times and was a ghost of its former self. Upon arriving, the Kings learned that the hotel was closing for the winter and only a skeleton crew remained. Nonetheless, the couple was checked into room 217, which was then known as the Presidential Suite, as the only paying guests. So, picture this. You're driving up through the mountains, and you need a place to stay, right? There's really nothing around. They come across the Stanley Hotel, and it's literally the night before they close for the whole winter season. So you've seen the picture. You've seen how big this hotel is. 140 rooms. Massive. And you and your wife are the only two people in the hotel.
That's got to be crazy.
Yeah. That's kind of creepy. Not gonna lie. I mean, that's kind of eerie, but I digress. That night, the author had a nightmare in which he saw his young son being chased down the hotel's long, empty corridors by a predatory, possessed fire hose. He woke up drenched in sweat and stepped out into the balcony to smoke a cigarette. By the time he put that cigarette out, he'd worked out the bones of what would become his third novel, the first bestseller, The Shining.
That's wild.
That's crazy. Like, everybody knows the movie. Everybody knows the book. Like, I mean, literally, I think The Shining is what put Stephen King really on the map.
Yeah.
And it all started.
Safely to assume so, because when you think of Stephen King, that's one of the first things that pops in your head.
Exactly. Yeah, that and the Overlook Hotel. The creepiness of the Overlook Hotel. The fact that you check in and you never check out. That type of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. King's nightmare definitely turned out to be a sweet dream and a breath of life for the historic landmark that served as an inspiration for, like I said, the fictional Overlook Hotel. The surge in spectrally involved, motivated tourism after the book was published in 1977 still is going strong, thanks in part to a 1980 film adaptation directed by Stanley Kubrick and starring Jack Nicholson. Red Rum, anyone? So there's another connection to movie lore and the Room 217. You're familiar with Jim Carrey, right?
I am.
Okay. That one actually I didn't know. I'm serious. I don't think I've ever watched a movie with you with Jim Carrey in it. But yeah, I was just curious. So for our listeners who don't know who Jim Carrey is a Canadian-American actor and comedian known for his elastic expressions, high-energy performances, and an ability to balance comedy with depth. He rose to fame in the early 90s, and his time filming one of his movies, Dumb and Dumber, at the Stanley Hotel left him with a chilling ghost encounter he's rarely spoken about since. Have you ever seen Dumb and Dumber?
I have, but I actually did not know that they filmed at that hotel. That's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah, so, well, for those of you who don't know about the Dumb and Dumber film, it follows two friends, Lloyd and Harry, played by Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, respectively, who travel cross-country to deliver luggage to a woman Lloyd literally had just met during his limousine driver job. Once in Aspen, Colorado, the two live lavishly after discovering that the luggage contains thousands and thousands of dollars. The hotel served as the high-class resort located in the mountains surrounding Aspen during filming. So Carrie stayed at the hotel in room 217 during this time. Since you've seen it, you'll recognize the Stanley. They pull up in like a Lamborghini or something, and he's just like Jim Carrey's character is just handing out like cash, like it's candy.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I do remember that.
There's a part where he's talking to this lady in the hotel bar, and he gets up and then he goes to walk out, and there's like a picture of the "They Landed on the Moon" article.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh my God, guys, we landed on the moon," because he's that stupid. He thinks that it literally had just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
that's the
that.
Stanley. Yeah, that's the Stanley Hotel. I think they filmed the scene at the end, towards the end, when they end up getting kind of held hostage. I think that's in one of the hotel rooms.
Okay. So,
for those of you who haven't seen Dumb and Dumber, I won't reveal anything, but this definitely gave you a sneak peek into it, I guess. Try to picture all those together.
Might want to put a small spoiler alert there, or just just go watch the movie. Regardless, It's a good movie.
Well, I definitely don't think I spoiled anything, but
no.
I mean, imagine not seeing this movie and trying to piece together luggage with thousands of dollars somewhere in Aspen, Colorado, dude's handing out money like candy, and then suddenly he's held hostage. What in the world what does that mean?
It's just one kind of a movie. It is a very interesting movie. To say the least.
It is definitely the 90s too.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah, it's an hilarious movie. You guys have got to check it out. But going back to our case, so Jim Carrey ended up staying in the hotel in room 217. However, it's reported that he only stayed for a few hours and left, totally spooked by what happened inside. He has never publicly spoken about the incident, but rumors say that he heard whispers from a ghostly presence loud enough that he couldn't sleep, and that whatever was said terrified him enough that he fled the hotel. He's not the only one either. Many guests have done the same thing, and today you can still stay the night in room 217.
That's interesting. I wonder if... do you know what his kind of perspective is on paranormal? If he's ever said anything about it?
I don't know his perspective necessarily on the paranormal. He has come out and I believe talked about like how his, in faith, that he's has a faith in something beyond,
Yeah.
I think he's come out as like a Christian, but I obviously I don't want to pry and I don't want to assume somebody's beliefs. But I think that if you can reach those, if you can, like a lot of people that I've met who are Christians do believe in the spiritual realm. I am myself as a Christian do believe that there is something out there.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I have seen, like when I was in high school, I watched a clip where he kind of talked about this experience, but like I could tell that he purposely did not want to talk about it.
I wonder if one day he'll open up a little bit more about it, but until then.
Yeah, until then. Other than that, he still remains one of the most hilarious, full-bodied comedians that I think we have during our time, right? Like, every, the holidays are coming up. Every holiday, I have to watch, The Grinch That Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey.
I love that movie.
Yeah. I have seen interviews about that. It's hilarious. He talks about how it was a nightmare doing the makeup and how they had to hire a CIA ex-operative to come in and basically coach him on how to deal with stress and torture. Because it was bad. And he talks about how he sits there and he's just yelling to himself, "It's for the kids, it's for the kids, it's for the kids."
Yeah. That must have been a whole episode.
Yeah. But anyway, I do hope that maybe one day he comes out and shares his experience, because I can tell you right now there is a community out there that will not judge him and will and definitely embrace his story. So
for sure.
And I know I can't speak for our whole community, our whole paranormal community, but I'm pretty sure that's how we would all handle it.
Oh yeah.
Join us, be one of us, that type of thing. So going back to the case in the hotel, some people...
I'm sorry, but you kind of reminded me of that one song from the Eagles, Hotel California.
Hotel California, yeah.
But
come, you'll never leave.
Exactly. But keep going, sorry.
So the hotel is also said to be a portal to the other side, if you believe any of that at all. But anyway, me personally, I kind of believe in portals, but some people will definitely debate that. But the portal to the other side. In an online article written by Ghost City Tours, we learn one hotspot that has caught the attention of psychic mediums worldwide is the hotel's main staircase, an impressive piece of classical architecture that has for many years been affectionately referred to as the Vortex. This stairway, which connects the hotel lobby to the second floor suites, is believed to be a kind of paranormal portal, a tunnel of spiritual energy that is often cited as the reason why so many ghosts and lost spirits continue to hang around the Stanley Hotel.
Interesting.
Yeah. So when you were looking at those pictures, I'm sure it came up, the staircase that I'm talking about. It's got beautiful woodwork, beautiful wallpaper. It's absolutely stunning, and it is like, when you think of something Victorian, that's what you think of.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. That actually does look pretty beautiful.
Yeah. So, guys, there are tons of interesting photos associated with this particular staircase. I almost said scarecase. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did kind of catch on to that a little bit there.
You know what? I'm going to leave that in. That was good. Yeah. Anyway, with this staircase, many of them are of what appears to be full-bodied apparitions. Some have theorized that the two mirrors on the landing have something to do with the vortex's energy. Know anything that I'm talking about, Matt, about mirrors?
Yeah, I'm seeing the connection here.
Okay. So mirrors, for those of you who don't know, have long been seen as portals or conduits between the physical and spiritual worlds, reflective surfaces that can trap or reveal energies beyond our sight. In folklore and in paranormal lore, they're often thought to hold residual energy, act as gateways for spirits, or even reflect a person's soul. Have you ever heard of the Bloody Mary?
Yes,
thing?
I'm very familiar with that.
We're going to cover it at one point.
Shebang.
I'll tell you right now, I've never done it because I don't tempt that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't mess with that.
Just don't tempt it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the Bloody Mary theory is kind of based off of that, where the spirit of this woman, Bloody Mary, will appear behind you in the mirror. And if you call her name, she'll come out of the mirror and chase you around and kill you, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
You could tell I don't really hold a lot of weight behind that, but it is interesting. I have seen some very interesting pictures taken in mirrors.
Yeah.
And there will be things behind the person that you can't replicate, you can't explain it. I've even had pictures taken of mirrors in my own investigations and have seen weird stuff. So, anyway.
It's one of those things where there's a lot of things that you'd question behind it, but there's got to be some sort of reasoning or something behind it, because if you listen to a lot of different paranormal cases, you'll hear stuff a little similar to that, or even in popular, media stuff like that, like movies and stuff, they have a lot of scenes involving mirrors. So, people talk about it and there's a lot of pop culture stuff surrounding it. There's got to be some sort of truth to it in some way or capacity.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
At the Stanley Hotel, like I said, one of the most famous ghostly tales involves the mirror. This is on the grand staircase, and like I said, they call it the vortex. There's essentially two mirrors, one that faces into itself. So there's one on one side and one on the other side of this staircase.
Yeah.
So you can imagine if you're standing in the middle of this and you're going to be looking through mirrors upon mirrors upon mirrors upon mirrors upon mirrors upon mirrors upon mirrors.
Yeah.
Right. That's just freaky to begin with. But I just wanted to point that out there.
At the photos, and just the amount of mirrors along each side of the staircase here is actually it's interesting, to say the least.
It's one of those if you want to mess around and find out type situation.
Yeah.
If you want to create a vortex, this is how you do it. Guests and staff have reported seeing unexplained reflections, particularly of a woman in old-fashioned attire, believed to be Flora Stanley. The mirror's placement, like I said, overlooking the grand staircase where countless guests have passed, has fueled the idea that it captures lingering spiritual imprints, making it one of the most photographed and paranormally active hotspots in the entire hotel. And guys, a lot of these photos that we find online, we're going to go ahead and post to our additional media content. So again, be sure to check us out in the show notes through the link tree, and you'll be able to see all that stuff. So, going back to Flora. So, she really loved this hotel, and in many ways, this was her way of connecting with the community and building the community of Estes Park. So to reference an article from U.S. Ghost Adventures, aside from room 217, the concert hall, which was Flora's like baby, right? That was her big thing, was the concert hall, which is located in the second building to the right of the main lobby, is considered the most haunted of the Stanley Hotel's 11 structures. Originally built for Flora Stanley by her devoted husband, it was designed in the style of Boston's Symphony Hall. I knew I had made that note somewhere, by the way.
Okay.
So, yeah. While several spirits are said to inhabit the concert hall, Lucy is by far the most famous.
Makes sense.
Where the hell did I get Lucy? You know what I mean? Like, we went from Florida to Lucy, so why, where did this Lucy come in? Well, I'm about to explain. Obviously, Flora has been spotted in the concert hall, and many investigators claim that using spirit box sessions and Estes sessions and all sorts of these different types of ways of communicating, EVPs, whatnot, that they have made contact with Flora in the past and that she likes to hang out on the stage area. But what makes the concert hall very famous is Lucy. Lucy lived in the hotel during some of its darkest times when it was almost dormant. Long after its early years of grandeur, F.O. Stanley sold the hotel in February 1926, repurchased it 3 years later, and then sold it again. Since then, multiple owners would purchase it, open it as a hotel, and struggle to maintain it, and it would move on to the next one, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Where we pick up Lucy's story is in the 90s. So, in 1974, Frank Nomali bought the hotel the same year that Stephen King visited, and he did his best to restore it back to its original grandeur. That he's also the one that established the Stanley Historic District in 1977 to protect the hotel and its surrounding buildings. So that's why when we get to the 90s, it's still around, despite having such an up and down history.
Yeah.
Because it was a historical structure, so it's not like somebody could just close it and just destroy it.
Yeah.
Despite all of these efforts, like I said, the hotel continued to struggle financially due to its reoccurring seasonal pattern of revenue. I mean, obviously you can see that's an issue. It's only open during half the year.
Yeah.
Right? So this had been a problem since Stanley first owned it, and by 1995, it was again facing bankruptcy and was put up for sale. At that time, the concert hall had been hit the hardest, and it even had a hole in its roof large enough to see the sky.
Oof.
Yeah. And Lucy, who was basically a homeless teenager, made her home there. Her full story remains largely unknown because not many people knew her story while she was there, but she lived alone in the hall while the hotel awaited a buyer. When John Cullen purchased it for $3.1 million in 1996, Lucy, unfortunately, was discovered. Allegedly, she had been forced out of the soon-to-be renovated building by the police, but she came back, and at some point, she froze to death.
Dang.
Yeah. Could you imagine the ending of The Shining with Jack?
Yeah, I could see the connection there.
That's what I pictured. So Lucy was alleged to be 16 years old when she died, and her youth is very prevalent in how she interacts. Lucy's spirit is very active at the Stanley Hotel. Like many of the other ghosts, she seems content to remain in her former home, and is most frequently seen in the room where she once slept. Visitors on ghost tours or daring solo explorers have reported seeing the door to this room swing open and closed on its own, often accompanied by eerie whispers of a woman who isn't physically present, sending shivers down the spines of those nearby. This was even captured live on the news. Now, if I can find the video, which it's very hard to find the original video, I will definitely post in our socials. This footage was recorded in 2004.
Okay.
It was not digital yet, it was still analog. Anyway, needless to say, the concert hall has a reputation as one of the hotel's most frightening areas. Lucy is also known to play with flashlights during ghost hunts. In the lobby, a photograph of the guest in the concert hall captures an unsettling detail. Behind the guest's reflection, the faint image of another woman, believed to be Lucy, appears. She's not the only one in this concert hall, by the way. It's a very active place, all right?
Yeah.
There's also Paul and Edward. Paul and Edward were both handymen at the hotel and remain tied to their former workspace. We're purposely not using their last names, okay?
Gotcha.
From what I understand, Paul and Edward were actually documented as employees of the hotel, and they actually really do have a history, and they still have surviving members of their family, so we don't want to draw any attention to that.
Yeah, don't want to intrude on their privacy. I get that.
Paul, who died of a heart attack, collapsed at work and passed away in his car en route to the hospital. Yeah, he is known to shout at intruders to leave and is particular about enforcing the closing time, which is 11 p.m. In fact, his presence is seen as strongest at that time. So you can almost imagine he's almost like the guardian of the hotel. You know, he wants to make sure that people are not abusing it and are not being where they shouldn't be at times when it's closed, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. He's even since he no longer have to works there, he must love his job, because he must love that place to protect it like that and make sure things are in order.
Yeah, I mean, I love my job, but you probably won't find me patrolling the streets as a ghost. You know what I mean?
I know, that'd be fun, wouldn't it?
I'm like, I think I've clocked out for the final time. So Edward is even less hospitable. He's loud. He's aggressive. He will be seen to have he's heard banging on things, usually near the front of the concert hall. Tour guides say that Edward was unfriendly in life, and his ghost shows no signs of warmth either. So encounters with him can be seen as unsettling, making the concert hall great for overall just paranormal activity.
Gotcha.
So this is definitely one of those locations that if I investigate, I am definitely going to investigate the concert hall.
That'll work.
And not to make Paul angry, but I'm going to have to do it after 11 o'clock.
That's going to be an experience. I'm just going to say that now. I could already see it.
Hopefully he says hi. Hopefully he just says hi, and I'll show him that I'm not there to be mean. But anyway. Why is the Stanley so active? Why is it that some places seem more active than others? Well, there's a theory on that. The hotel is built primarily on a foundation of granite and rests on soil and bedrock composed largely of schist. It is a type of metamorphic rock. I almost said another word when I said schist, but we're going to keep moving.
All right.
Paranormal enthusiasts often highlight the geological composition of the hotel as a potential factor in its extensively ghostly activity. Granite, in particular, has been suggested to, quote-unquote, store sound or energy from past events, contributing to residual hauntings. Some stories also attribute paranormal phenomenon to the presence of quartz, which is thought to generate physioelectric effects, producing electromagnetic fields that could amplify unusual occurrences such as flickering lights, disembodied whispers, and sudden cold spots. Paranormal investigators at the Stanley often correlate the hotel's geology with the supernatural activity reported by guests and ghost hunters. The Stanleys, Lucy, Paul, Edward, the hotel's most frequently observed spirits, are said to appear in areas where structural and geological features intersect, such as the concert hall and certain rooms built directly over bedrock. Investigators argue that the combination of granite foundations, schist soil, and the hotel's historic energy creates an environment conducive to paranormal phenomena. While these claims are largely speculative and lack scientific verification, they prove a framework for understanding the hotel's reputation as one of the most haunted locations in the U.S. Yeah. I'm not going to go into details of where we're exactly from, but Matt, I just want to say where we're at in geological sense is very active because of this fact.
Yes, we are all too familiar with this, whole thing.
Both of our states are just riddled with these particular metamorphic rocks. For me, it's a lot of limestone. For you, I think there's a lot of granite.
Yeah, there's also some limestone around here because we've got a couple of limestone quarries, if you will, where they actively mine that stuff out still, surprisingly.
Yeah. So I'm only briefly touching the subject, but guys, I strongly recommend you reach out, look up the connection between geology and the paranormal. At some point, we'll probably dive deeper into it, talk about ley lines and whatnot, but it is an interesting theory that all this stuff kind of lines up. Anyway, the Stanley Hotel, speaking of paranormal research, has proven very vital to what we do in the paranormal world. So the Estes method was developed in early 2016 at the Stanley Hotel by investigators Carl Pfeiffer, Connor Randall, and Michelle Tate. This is absolutely game-changing. the Estes method is game-changing in the paranormal world. Matt, do you have any idea what I'm talking about when I say this? Because I know that we haven't done a lot of paranormal stuff together, like actually investigating.
I'll be completely honest with you, it does not really ring a bell, but I'm sure the more you kind of describe it to me, I'll start getting a better picture of it.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go through my notes first, and then I'll try to explain this in more of a just a regular guy type conversation. Okay, so the method emerged as a response to the perceived weaknesses in traditional spirit box sessions, where many participants are in the same room, hear the questions being asked, and may unwittingly influence each other's responses. By isolating one person, quote-unquote the receiver, with noise-canceling headphones plugged into a spirit box and a blindfold, otherwise removing visual and auditory cues from the group, the receiver is unable to hear the questions being asked by the rest of the team or the input and reactions of the group. For those of you, like I said, like in your case, Matt, who may be new to investigating the paranormal, this is what a spirit box is. It's a handheld device that rapidly scans through AM and FM radio frequencies. This fast sweep creates a steady stream of white noise and chopped bits of audio. Investigators believe that spirits can use this noise as a medium to form words or short responses in real time. The idea is that because the radio scans so quickly, we're talking 12 frequencies a second, any clear or meaningful answers that match the investigators' questions might be something more than just radio bleed through. So I'm going to go ahead and play, in the magic world of editing, I'm going to play what that kind of sounds like, what a spirit box sounds like when it's just sitting there going through scans. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, so imagine that playing in your ear very, 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 very loud. And
yeah.
Matt's trying not to laugh because this is all edited afterwards, so we're not actually hearing what a spirit box sounds like. So I said,
come on,
3, 2, 1.
Pull it together, man. Pull it together. It's not that funny.
And it just went silent, and he's like, awesome. Anyway, yeah, for our audience, they heard what it sounded like. So yeah. That's what it sounds like, guys. So, for example, if the word Ryder is spoken, it may have been said over a span of 20 to 25 different scans.
Can I point out, is you didn't hear it on your end, obviously, but I heard it on my end because I've got my headset. When you were talking about describing the spirit box, on my end, all my audio cut off for approximately a couple seconds. So you cut out and then cut back in again. It was weird. Like nothing else, like no power surge or anything happened, but it just like cut out on my end, which is kind of crazy.
No, I didn't hear it. I mean, everything sounded fine.
It might be my house, considering I probably do live in a haunted house at the moment. Not fully confirmed. I have been there,
and there is a vibe, dude. There's a vibe in your basement. And I'm not saying that to be a joke. There's something in that house.
Yeah. For context, I live in a house that was built back in the 1920s, so it probably does have some energy. And this is not a first for me. I've lived in a couple different haunted locations, but that'll be explained probably maybe another day. If
And, well, I got comments. Whoever the hell built his house and decided carpet, not on the floor in the bathroom. We're talking in the shower, around the shower, like on the walls of it. That's disgusting, and you need to be taken out back and shot. I'm just saying.
For context, that's not a 1920s thing. That's a 1970s thing. This house is very dated, and we are in the progress of updating it.
But guys, it's not just regular carpet. It's like shag carpet. And we're talking like where the faucets are. Okay? Like on the wall.
It's wild. It really is.
Normally is. And I'm just like, who thought that was a great idea? Anyway, I'm sorry. I digress. And you know what? I've just decided, because I'm the producer and the editor, we're leaving all of this in.
Oh, dear God. But anyways.
Welcome to Crypt Walkers, guys.
You might want to add that disclaimer. Unedited.
Unedited. For the purposes of the Estes method, the idea is that the spirits will use the spirit box white noise to communicate with less external factors influencing this interaction, such as human influence. The sensory deprivation eliminates any stimuli that could potentially influence the blindfolded investigator's perceptions or interpretations of the spirit box responses. By removing distractions and focusing solely on what is coming through the spirit box, investigators can better discern any potential messages from the supposed spirits present in the room. So the advantage of this approach, as proponents argue, lies in its attempt to reduce bias, suggestion, and group influence, thereby producing what they consider cleaner or more direct responses from any alleged spirits, because the receiver does not know what is being asked, and they are less likely to subconsciously tailor their responses to what they think the questioner wants or to pick up cues from the group. So, I explained all that in a very technical sense. Now I'm going to explain it in a very easy sense so that everybody can understand, including me.
Fair.
So normal spirit box sessions, we've all seen Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters and Sam and Kobe and whatever, right?
Yes.
Essentially, you're walking around, you got this device, it's scanning through radio frequencies very fast, and you're just hearing what we played before. The whole group is, right? Your whole team.
Yes.
And you're asking questions, and it breaks through with answers. And then I go, oh my God, did you hear it say Matt? It said Matt. Well, now you heard that it said Matt because I told you that it said Matt, right?
Yeah.
And there's kind of like some biases that can go on. I don't know the term, but I know you've seen these memes that have been floating around where it like shows a stadium of people shouting, chanting.
Yeah.
And they put a word, and then all of a sudden you hear what that word said, and then they change the word, and now all of a sudden you hear that word even though the chanting hasn't changed.
Yeah.
It's like a mental mind game, if that makes sense.
Kind of makes sense, yeah.
So the guys at the Stanley Hotel basically came up with a better way of creating a controlled environment for spirit box sessions. And it's named the Estes method because it was developed in Estes, Colorado.
Yes.
I have seen this, I've done this in real life, and it is crazy. Like, it is absolutely crazy. I cannot wait until I go over the Sally House in a future episode. But I have seen this with my own eyes, and it is absolutely intense. So, to cut out the biases, you put one person under Estes, which means they have noise-canceling headphones that are blaring that noise that you heard earlier, right? Just this regular radio frequency. It's blaring that. They also can't see what's going on around them. And so the rest of the group has no idea what the person is hearing because they're not under Estes. So
yeah.
They'll ask questions, and the person who is under Estes will just say whatever they hear come through the spirit box. So to the person who's under, it kind of doesn't make any sense. Like, you're just spitting out random stuff. You have no idea what's being asked. You have no idea where this is going. You're just taking whatever you hear and you're saying it. Okay?
Yeah.
The stuff that happens during these sessions are freaky. Not just for the people participating, like in the group asking the questions, but also the person who's under Estes. Imagine your senses are completely deprived. You can't hear, you can't see. And other than stuff going through the spirit box, all you're hearing is white noise. So you naturally kind of get into like this, I don't want to say trance, but you get very relaxed, you get very almost like hypnotized.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I believe that there are other ways that the spirits communicate, because I have seen people, grown men who do not get teary-eyed in responses to certain things that we're asking, right? Like, it's almost like emotionally they get affected.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They just kind of, they get really absorbed into it. They get really involved, if that makes sense.
Yes. So, naturally to say, I think the Estes method is the biggest game changer to the world of the paranormal than the night vision camera, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big deal, and I think it's even credible because of that reason. Like, some skeptics would argue that the receiver could still hear you, or that questions are pre-planned. I would agree. But like I said, I have investigated using Estes myself, and what I've experienced is quite fascinating. Okay? It's quite the contrary. Like, when you're under, you cannot hear anything other than what's blowing through the spirit box. Like, you cannot hear anything that's outside of you. And I mean, I can't ease skeptics' concerns about whether or not the questions are pre-planned, because you never know. Maybe somebody could fake it, and they are. But I can tell you, when I've done my investigation, we were live on Facebook, and the questions that were coming through from the viewers is what I was asking, okay? There's no way that was pre-planned, because these are just random viewers that came on and asked these questions, and the responses we were getting were crazy. Anyway, I'm going to push that off until I cover that episode, but stick around, guys, because that one's nuts. to finish this up and to start kind of winding down, like I said before, this is one location that I would love to take off from work, travel in the dead of winter, and visit. To steal a line from Stephen King's The Shining, slightly modified of course, I would say all work and no play makes Ryder a dull boy. I would love to do my own investigating and try my luck at conducting an Estes session myself in the building where the now infamous method was created. So, have any of you guys investigated the Stanley? Did you have a run-in with one of its alleged spirits? If you have, we'd love to hear it. My goal for this podcast going forward is to be as connected to our audience as possible. I'll give a warning as we conclude our case tonight. It seems like we're moving in the direction of the housekeeping part of our show, so I promise I will be very brief, and be sure to stick around because this brief housekeeping segment is over. There is actually a trailer to our next episode that follows. So, if you guys are a frequent listener, you may have noticed we have been on an unexplained hiatus for the past 5 months. I apologize for this. Unfortunately, it's been a very busy summer for William and I. William has been killing it with WTC Paranormal, and it's kept him extremely busy with live events and investigations. Myself, I changed departments and moved cities, and sometimes I feel like I'm learning to be a cop all over again. That being said, the show is back, and you can expect new episodes every other Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts. In order to make time for the main show, I have decided we would have to suspend the listener files. For now. We may have some listener stories episodes in the future, but we have to get there first. I have decided we will change the show up a little bit. In the past, I never censored foul language or anything of the sort. But going forward, I will be making this more family-friendly with PG-13 content. I'm excited for what the rest of this year and 2026 holds. If you like this content, please send a shout out and follow us on our socials. I love to hear your feedback, your stories, and your case suggestions. Well, Matt, now that we're kind of in the conclusion phase, do you have any final thoughts regarding the Stanley Hotel?
Well, I do. So, given hearing the history on it and, looking at pictures of it, it's very special kind of architecture, if you will. It's a very fascinating place, and, hearing all the accounts and hearing that it has a bunch of different spirits in it, which I'm sure there's probably more than that, what we just talked about, but the main few, it's very interesting. I would recommend for those that are not very familiar with this place, which it's got, I'll be honest, I wasn't very familiar with it either until talking about it. I definitely recommend looking more into this place and listening to all the different stories that it has to offer and, looking into its very vibrant history, to say the least. It definitely is one of those,
stereotypical haunts?
Not necessarily that. I just can't find the correct words for it. It definitely is something that would pique your interest, especially if you're into this sort of thing. Even if you're not into the paranormal, it's still got a lot of rich things to offer.
Even just the history alone is great. So to conclude this case episode, today the Stanley Hotel stands as a monument to history, mystery, and the restless spirits who linger within its walls. The Stanleys, Lucy, Paul, Edward, they may be gone in body, but their presence is felt in every creaking floorboard and flickering light. Investigators still use methods like the Estes session to try to communicate, yet some questions remain unanswered. If you think you felt a presence or heard a whisper from beyond, share your story with us, because in places like the Stanley, the dead are never truly silent.
Next time on Crypt Walkers.
Deep in the woods of Rockville, there's a place where thousands came to heal, but many never walked out. Once a tuberculosis sanatorium, later a nursing home, and then mental hospital, the Indiana State Sanatorium has seen decades of suffering, and some say the halls still echo with it. Next time on Crypt Walkers, we step inside and explore its deepest shadows. But beware, not everything in the dark is willing to stay unseen.
Episode airs Wednesday, December 3rd, wherever you get your podcasts.
This podcast is a Miko Line Media production. The names Crypt Walkers, a paranormal podcast, and WTCW Paranormal is owned by its individual owners. All rights reserved. Music by Quentin Kobeltz. Sound design created by Miko Line Media and licensed through Artlist. Copyright 2025.